Why would you do that when there's video evidence showing that you're not? Why can't The Rock, for once in his life, simply tell us the truth? He lies about almost everything. He says exactly what you want to hear. Oh, The Rock eats 6,000 or 7,000 calories a day.
Well, I would say possible, almost 8,000 calories a day.
Sure he does. Sure he does, Rock. The Rock doesn't eat 6,000 calories a day. What's next? You think The Rock only drinks Zoa energy?
For most of his life in the spotlight, The Rock has been known as a straight-up physical monster, built like a living statue, always the biggest presence in the room. At his peak, he was hovering past 300 pounds of pure muscle, and that size wasn't just for show. Being massive wasn't only his look, it was the brand. Larger than life wasn't a tagline, it was his entire career blueprint. But lately, fans have noticed something that just doesn't feel right. New photos started popping up online and The Rock looks noticeably smaller, almost like a different person. Reports say he's dropped over 60 pounds and there's no hiding it. The oversized comic book muscle is gone, replaced with a leaner, more average build that nobody was expecting. Even his face looks different now. Sharper lines, slimmer features, and that thick, blocky look that once screamed dominance just isn't there anymore. Online reactions split fast. Some people say he looks healthier, calmer, like someone who finally stepped away from non-stop pressure. Others aren't buying it at all, saying without that massive frame, he doesn't stand out the same. A lot of fans straight up said it feels like he lost the thing that made him The Rock. And of course, the jokes came flying in instantly, memes everywhere saying he went from The Rock to The Pebble. But behind the jokes, there's a serious question nobody can ignore. His size has always been controversial. He's admitted in the past to experimenting with PEDs when he was younger, and plenty of people believe that didn't fully stop. Now, at 53, reality hits different. A body can only take so much stress before it pushes back hard. Dropping weight could be about protecting his health and avoiding long-term damage. But it might also be strategic. For years, Hollywood treated him like a guaranteed money printing machine, locking him into the same unstoppable role over and over. That safety also trapped him. Slimming down could be his way of breaking out and finally chasing roles that don't depend on him being the biggest guy on screen. And now the real question is clear. Is The Rock finally ready to flip the script on Hollywood, on his image, and on everything people thought they knew about him? Earlier this month, he showed up at the Venice Film Festival for his new movie, The Smashing Machine. And right away, it was obvious this wasn't business as usual. This wasn't a loud, glossy action movie packed with explosions and catchphrases. This was something completely different. The film is a character-driven story centered on Mark Kerr, a dominant MMA fighter from the late 90s who rose fast and crashed even faster once addiction and personal struggles took over. It's gritty, uncomfortable, and far from the safe roles Dwayne usually plays. The project was directed by Benny Safdie, with Emily Blunt cast as Kerr's wife, and Dwayne didn't play it safe for a second. He physically transformed to match Kerr's intimidating build and used heavy facial prosthetics on his nose, brow, cheeks, and jaw to fully disappear into the role. For the first time in his career, he wasn't selling the Rock brand at all. There was no winking at the audience, no relying on charm, no playing the invincible hero. He was trying to become someone else entirely. And when the movie premiered in Venice, the reaction said everything. The crowd gave him a standing ovation that lasted over 15 minutes. He looked overwhelmed, visibly emotional, holding back tears as it happened. Critics didn't just praise the performance, they called it vulnerable and career-defining. Some even compared it to The Wrestler and Raging Bull. That kind of conversation is brand new territory for him. For once, he wasn't being talked about as a box office cheat code, but as a serious actor. At the press conference, he admitted this was the kind of respect he'd been chasing for years.
How do you think he got all that muscle? Because he's the hardest worker in the room? Because he's up at 4:30? We've seen The Rock's workouts, using those bikini girl weights, walking around, trying to make it look like it's harder than last time when he's lifting almost nothing. Or is it the steroid? Been using and abusing performance-enhancing drugs for years, and what do you think that does?
A little bit before you and I met.
Yeah.
But just as we met.
Yeah.
I was looking at the valves and I had a complete cardiovascular workup. There was what looked to be some what looked to be some stuff inside the
Like a buildup of
like
what
a
they thought was
buildup,
plaque.
what they thought was
And
plaque in the circumflex valve
in the artery, yeah.
in the artery, right? And then when we looked at that on the old school traditional MRI and the scans, it looked like I had buildup. And then immediately the call to action was, all right, well, let's get you on this medication. It's a multi-month medication, and here we go. We got to get on it right away.
Well, aside from building a freaking physique such as this, it also causes a host of negative side effects. One of which, it sets you up for a heart attack. Your heart is going to grow bigger, which sounds good, but it's not. Left ventricular hypertrophy is not something that you want.
What really stands out is the role itself. Mark Kerr represents everything Dwayne's on-screen persona always avoided: loss, weakness, addiction, public collapse. Kerr was a champion, but also a man who unraveled in front of the world. For someone whose contracts once guaranteed he could never lose a fight, stepping into that reality is a massive shift. This marks a hard break from the old formula. Dwayne has said he's wanted to do something different for years, but the big question is why now? For most of his career, he's basically been playing himself. Whether it was Fast and Furious, Jumanji, San Andreas, Skyscraper, or Jungle Cruise, it always felt like the same version. The shredded action hero, cracking jokes, taking hits, saving everyone, walking away untouched every single time. That formula became his calling card. It wasn't just about size, it was about being untouchable. His movies weren't built around characters, they were built around a product. And while that product pulled massive crowds worldwide, it didn't earn him real respect as an actor. Still, the system worked again and again. He climbed to the top, became the highest paid actor in Hollywood, and built a global brand around one unbreakable image. That's why this sudden shift feels so shocking. The weight loss, the role choices, the darker tone. Something clearly forced a reset. And part of that may come down to health. Just months ago, Dwayne appeared on Dr. Mark Hyman's podcast and opened up about a serious health scare. He revealed doctors initially thought one of the arteries in his heart might be blocked. That news hit hard enough that he immediately got a second opinion. After advanced AI scans, doctors confirmed there was no plaque at all, just a harmless irregularity. On paper, everything checked out fine. But scares like that don't just fade away, especially at 53. Being confronted with heart disease makes time feel real fast. It makes limits impossible to ignore. He's pushed his body to extremes for decades. And here's the part that stood out. The podcast ran nearly 40 minutes, covering gut health, nutrition, genetics, and heart risks. Yet there wasn't a single mention of steroids or performance-enhancing substances. Not once. For someone whose physique has been questioned for years, that silence said more than anything he actually said. This didn't happen by accident at all. That podcast episode now has more than half its viewers smashing the dislike button, and the comment section tells the real story fast. Scroll for 5 seconds and you'll see the same question popping up again and again. How do you talk for almost 40 minutes about your health and completely dodge the one thing everyone is thinking about? People aren't clueless. They know if there's one thing that could have put serious strain on his body over the years, it's PED use. Whether he ever admits it publicly or not, that conversation has followed him his entire career.
Hollywood, as we all know, and it had become about box office, and you chase the box office, and the box office in our business that we know is very loud, and it can be very resounding, and it can push you into a category and into a corner, and this is your lane, and this is what you do, and this is what people want you to be, and this is what Hollywood wants you to be. And I understood that, and I made those movies, and I liked them, and they were fun, and some were really good and did well, and some not so good. I think what I did realize is that the most important thing, I just had this burning desire and this just voice that was saying, well, again, what if? But what if there is more? And what if I can? And a lot of times it's harder for us to, or at least for me, sometimes to know what you're capable of when you've been pigeonholed into something. It's harder to know, wait, can I do that? I feel like I can. And sometimes it takes people who you love and you respect to say, you can. I don't think it's anything to prove to Hollywood as much as it's just for me now.
Ignoring it didn't make it go away. It just made people talk louder. One Instagram user even dropped a breakdown video pointing out changes in Dwayne's physique and claiming the weight loss came from stepping off gear. What shocked people wasn't even the video itself, it was what happened next. The Rock jumped straight into the comments and shut it down, saying it was 100% not true. That kind of response is rare for him. He almost never engages with random online speculation, which made it feel like that comment hit a nerve. According to Dwayne, the weight loss has nothing to do with health scares or steroids at all. He says it's purely for his next project. That project is a film called Lizard Music. In it, he plays an eccentric older character known as the Chicken Man, a role that demands a slimmer, more fragile look instead of a comic book build. On paper, that explanation checks out. After bulking hard for the Smashing Machine, slimming down now serves two purposes at once. It lets him step into a completely different kind of role, boosting his credibility as an actor. And it gives him a clean reason to drop size without openly addressing health concerns. Still, a lot of people online aren't buying it. At 53, after decades of physical punishment, carrying that much muscle just isn't realistic long-term. Fans feel like they can see right through the official explanation. One commenter took things further, claiming Dwayne must have been warned by a doctor that staying on gear could raise his risk of a heart attack. Others started drawing comparisons to Hulk Hogan, another wrestling legend whose career was built on size and who later passed away at 71 from heart-related issues. That kind of comparison sticks, especially when you've lived in the same world, followed a similar path, and now you're deep into your 50s. Seen through that lens, the timing of Dwayne's dramatic weight loss feels less like coincidence and more like self-preservation. But here's the part people don't talk about enough. Going from years of extreme physical strain to suddenly cutting everything cold doesn't just make someone smaller, it can shock the system hard. That's why many believe it wasn't a full stop at all. More likely, it was a scale back, lower intensity, more sustainable habits, enough to stay solid without pushing his body to the edge every single day. The slimmer look might be opening doors in Hollywood, but it may have quietly closed one too. Dropping size doesn't just change how casting directors see him, it changes how fans see him in another world entirely. Earlier in 2024, Dwayne stepped back into WWE storylines and even headlined WrestleMania alongside Roman Reigns. That appearance had fans buzzing. Supporters of Cody Rhodes were convinced a full in-ring return was coming, but after seeing him in Venice, that idea feels way less realistic. Without the bulk, some of that larger-than-life presence just disappears. A promo or short cameo still makes sense. But carrying a WrestleMania main event the way he once did now feels like a long shot. One fan summed it up perfectly, saying it's hard to be the final boss when you're half the size you used to be. Without that towering presence, he's no longer the unstoppable wall Cody Rhodes would need to overcome. A Rock vs. Rhodes showdown, or even Rock vs. Roman Reigns, doesn't hit the same now as it would have a couple years ago. And knowing what's been said about Dwayne's pride, it's hard to imagine him stepping into a face-off where he looks visibly smaller than the guy across from him. What makes this even more interesting is that Dwayne isn't the only wrestler turned actor going through this shift. Back in 2024, fans noticed a similar transformation with Dave Bautista. New photos showed him far leaner than the thick, muscle-heavy build that defined his wrestling peak. Bautista is slightly older than Dwayne, and his downsizing carried the same quiet message.
I believe that The Rock has now lowered his doses. I don't think he's 100% natural. When you go from abusing steroids for perhaps 30 straight years, your body is going to shut down. Your HPT axis is going to be lowered. You're not going to have testosterone produced. Your LH, FSH hormones are going to be in the toilet. And so if he actually just cut out testosterone cold turkey, he would have brain fog. He would feel horrible. He wouldn't be able to use the downstairs effectively. It wouldn't be very good.
At a certain age, hauling around that much mass just isn't realistic anymore. The risks stack up fast, and the toll on the body isn't worth it. Bautista was open about this after bulking past 300 pounds for Knock at the Cabin. He admitted the size felt miserable, heavy, and draining. Once filming wrapped, he leaned out through diet changes, intermittent fasting, and jiu-jitsu, explaining that the lighter frame made him feel healthier, more mobile, and more comfortable in his own skin. For Bautista, that comfort was a bonus. The real goal was survival and longevity, and it's no coincidence that his transformation and Dwayne's happened around the same stage of life. That's where the comparison gets really interesting. Because while they've landed in similar physical places, their paths in Hollywood couldn't be more different from the start. Bautista never chased fame the way Dwayne did, and that difference matters. Yes, he broke out in Guardians of the Galaxy, but instead of cashing in with copy-paste action roles, Bautista went the opposite way. He didn't chase explosions or easy wins. He deliberately worked with directors who cared about performance and character, not just opening weekend numbers. That's how he ended up in films like Blade Runner 2049, Dune, and Knives Out. Those roles didn't turn him into a cartoon action hero, but they earned him real respect in serious film circles. Bautista became a household name quietly, without hype, without forcing it. Critics took him seriously. Directors trusted him. He stopped being seen as just a former wrestler with muscles and started being viewed as a legit actor who could disappear into a role. Bautista approaches acting like a student. He's willing to look foolish, uncomfortable, or weak if that's what the character demands. That mindset is rare, and it shows. For Dwayne, it's always been different. His choices have always been about optics. How dominant does he look? How untouchable is the character? How many tickets does it sell? How does it feed the brand and the businesses attached to it? Ego has always been part of the equation, and that's why the timing of The Smashing Machine and Lizard Music feels so telling. In just 2 projects, he went to opposite extremes, bulking up to play Mark Kerr, then slimming down to portray a fragile older man. On the surface, those moves look contradictory, but at the core, they're the same play, an attempt to conquer the one thing that's always escaped him. Because no matter how dominant his box office run has been, no matter the fame or the money, there's one label he's never fully earned: credible actor. And the cracks in his old formula were already showing. Black Adam was sold as his passion project, the movie that would reshape the DC universe. Instead, it collapsed hard. Reports painted him as trying to take control behind the scenes, pushing for Henry Cavill's Superman return while positioning himself as the center of DC's future. That moment exposed something audiences hadn't fully seen before. And once that curtain slipped, it never fully closed again. When the movie fell apart, the plan fell apart with it. Dwayne was quietly moved out of the spotlight. Not long after that came Red One, his big holiday release. And it instantly became a punchline online. People dragged it as another bloated studio project. All gloss, no soul. Streaming didn't save him either. Movies like Red Notice were hyped as massive hits, but critics tore them apart. That only reinforced the idea that his films had turned into empty products, built more on branding than storytelling. At the same time, the myths around him started cracking. For years, audiences bought into the People's Champ image completely. Polls even showed nearly half of Americans saying they wanted him to run for president. He was sold as the ultimate success story, the guy who could do no wrong. But that shine has faded. More people now see him as manufactured, a carefully controlled persona, not that different from the character he once played in wrestling. His film career only fed that perception. Despite all the money and fame, Dwayne has never been taken seriously as an actor, and that's why these new projects feel different. This doesn't feel like just another role choice. It feels like a full reset, a push to finally earn respect that slipped past him for decades. And the stakes go way beyond movies. His entire business empire is built on image. Terramana Tequila, Zoe Energy, Under Armour Project Rock. All of it depends on the idea of a superhuman figure. If you enjoyed this breakdown, like, subscribe, share, and drop your comments down below. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one.